Today we continue on with our NHL offseason plan series. Today we're on the 18th ranked team from the NHL's regular season, the Vancouver Canucks. They were certainly a very interesting team this past year. Lots of drama, lots of changes. What will we expect from them this offseason? We'll go over their possibilities for what they'll do for free agency, trades. What will they do with the NHL Draft? We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we continue on with our NHL offseason plan series, and today we're looking at the 18th ranked team from the regular season, the Vancouver Canucks. They were certainly a very interesting team to follow throughout last year, unfortunately for mostly all the wrong reasons. They were a team that was filled with drama, filled with rumors, taking a step back. It just really all seemed to kind of go downhill. The year before, they were a first-place finisher in the division, made it to the second round of the playoffs, were trending towards, maybe being a few pieces from being a cup contender, and then they fall back to missing the playoffs and just seemed like the team completely just fell apart. So we're going to recap last year by the numbers, and then we'll also recap last year by activity and what we saw, and then we're going to go into their offseason plan. So what do they have for cap space? Their restricted free agents, unrestricted free agents, and what are the top questions facing this team? What will they do when it comes to the draft, free agency, trades, etc.? So last year they finished with a record of 38, 30, and 14. For 90 points. That's a 19-point drop from the year before, where, like I said, they had 109 points, finished first in the division, and they dropped, down to fifth place. I mean, that's a substantial drop in one season when you largely had mostly the same team. It's not like they got it last year and lost a bunch of players to free agency or something. It was really internal drama that kind of ruined what was a wonderful thing. They scored 233 goals this past year, which was 23rd in the NHL, while giving up 251, which put them at 15th for goals against. Power play was respectable at 22.5 for 15th best, and the penalty kill surprisingly was one of the best in the league at 82.6 for third best. But looking at their goals for and against, they dropped by 46 goals one year over another. They had 279 the year before. They were one of the higher scoring teams in the NHL. Dropped all the way down to 233. That's crazy. And in goals against, they went from allowing 223, one of the best, to one of the average teams at 251. So they allowed 28 goals more, and they scored 46 fewer goals. That's a massive, massive drop in the plus minus. You're talking about over a 70-goal swing. That is insane for 1 year with largely the same group. Looking at the goaltending, they were obviously saved a lot by Kevin Lankinen this year. Now, of course, Lankinen was new after the mysterious injury to Thatcher Demko that was kind of rare and difficult to explain around the knee. He missed a lot of time this year. They signed Lankinen late into training camp, and it's a good darn thing they did, because as much as his numbers may not be through the roof, they were, especially early in the season, the only reason they were even in the playoff conversation beyond Christmas time. Of course, by later in the year, they slowly fell out of it, but they would have fallen out of it much sooner if it wasn't for Lankinen's play. He finished with a record of 25, 15, and 10, a 2.62 goals against, and a 902 save percentage. When Demko was in action, he had a 10, 8, and 3 record with a 2.9 and an 889 save percentage. Arthur Sheloffs, who seemed to be almost like a playoff hero of the year before, happened to fill in for Demko a bit. Didn't have a great year either, at least not at the NHL level. Had a 2-6-1 record with a 3.65 goals against and an 861 save percentage. Their scoring leaders were led by top defenseman Quinn Hughes of 76 points, pending free agent Brock Besser, and I guess going into the last year of his contract, Connor Garland, Besser, and Garland each had 50. So there's a major gap there from your first leading scorer to your second and third, and your first one's a defenseman. So your top forwards only had 50 points. And they're not named Elias Pettersson. That's not good at all. Jake DeBrusk, who came over as a free agent, put up a decent amount of goals. Doesn't get a lot of assists. Only had 48 points, but I believe it was 28 goals in there. P.S. Suter also. Suter had 46 points and had a pretty good season by his standards as well. Of course, at the end of the year, Rick Tocchet departs on his own accord. Contract was up. Decided he did not want to sign an extension with the Canucks and leaves after 2.5 years. Obviously, just didn't want to deal with the drama anymore. I think it was a draining campaign, and it just didn't want to be there. Obviously, like I said, they went from 1st to 5th in the division. The drama around Pettersson and Miller seemed to really just run rampant through the locker room, people taking sides, and it was just a complete, just everything fell apart, and it just drama to no end. So Miller is eventually traded, of course, to the Rangers where he wanted to go. Some pieces come back, like Hedl and Mancini. Did the best they could under difficult circumstances. Also made a big trade with the Penguins, bringing in Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor, who also signed extensions as well. So clearly, there were some changes, and there's going to be more here through the offseason. So it'll be interesting to see how the team looks going into next year. They do have $14.1 million available in cap space, but they do also have 20 roster spots already kind of filled. Now, a few of those are eligible to go to the minors, so it's not like they can't be a little bit more flexible than that. Looking at their internal business, though, there's really not a lot, but they do have a few important decisions. They actually do not have any restricted free agents. They have none. So no RFA business to take care of. From a UFA standpoint, the big one, Brock Besser, of course, is what they have to make a decision on. All indications are he won't be back. They tried to negotiate throughout the season and never really got all that close. Believe that he's looking for probably at least $1 million or $2 million more than what they're offering, and ideally a little more term as well. Pia Suter as well. Maybe he returns, but he's probably priced himself out. I don't imagine, as much as they like the player, I don't know what they're going to want to pay what he's able to get on the open market. A couple defensemen as well, Derek Forbort and Noah Juleson. It's difficult to say. I mean, they're very replaceable players, so I'm not sure that the Canucks will bring them back. Maybe, but it's probably doubtful at this point. A few key players are eligible for extensions this year. The main one that's most interesting to me is Thatcher Demko. What do you do with Demko? To me, if I'm Vancouver, I'm not signing an extension. I know he was asked near the end of the season if he would be, wanting to do that, and he said yes. He loves Vancouver and would love to sign an extension. And to be honest, I think he's probably concerned about his health as much as everybody else is. And if he's able to get a contract extension, he's taking it. Thinking about his own future, you have to. That's his job to do that. But, without getting more playing time out of him consistently, knowing his health is going to be okay, I'm not doing it. So it's going to be curious and interesting to see how they handle him. Some guys like Connor Garland, Teddy Bluger, and Kiefer Sherwood also eligible for extensions as well. Now, as far as the questions go, there's lots of them. There's more questions than there are answers, and we're going to leave this video with not being able to, I can give my opinions on a few things here, but some of it's just really hard to understand what they're going to do. The big one for me, or one of the first big ones, is how will new head coach Adam Foote transition from being an assistant coach to a head coach? That's a very tough job to do, from being good cop to bad cop. The team obviously, for the most part, knows him, which is good. To some extent, but like I said, it is very challenging, and I do think that the fact that Quinn Hughes has made it very, very well known how much he loves Adam Foote as a D coach, I think played a big role in him getting this job. The other part of this as well is that they wanted to go with the least little bit of disruption as possible. Rick Tocchet, once they knew he wasn't coming back, if Adam Foote didn't get this job, he was going to be gone too, and they also wanted to, I think, keep something internal the same. So ultimately, Foote is going to probably have his challenges. He's never been an NHL head coach. He was a head coach in junior for Kelowna in the Western Hockey League. So it's not like it's a completely foreign gig to him, but the NHL is very different. So be curious to see how he does. I can't answer the question of how he's going to do, but certainly, I would suspect he's going to probably build upon some of the things that Rick Tocchet tried to build there in the last couple of years. Maybe the biggest question, though, is can Elias Pettersson bounce back? Or is there any chance that the team tries to trade him before his full no-move clause kicks in July 1? They really need to make a big decision here. They either believe in this guy or they don't. And, it's hard to say because you don't want to screw this up. He's been a 100-point player. And if he can get back to that and you trade him, you might live to regret it for the next decade. But if you don't trade him and he can't find it again and he's just broken for whatever reason, you're stuck with that contract and your team is going to be negatively impacted for a lot of years too. So it's not easy. I think they, at the very least, need to have conversations around the NHL with other teams to see, like, okay, if we wanted to consider it, what's out there? Like, why they signed him and Miller both, I don't know. I mean, they set themselves up to have a lot of these issues because a lot of the problems that are there now were not new, and they were all well aware of it before some of these guys signed key contracts. So you made your bed, you got to lie in it now. But obviously a big decision on Pettersson. At this point, I have a hard time having confidence in him, and I would probably lean more towards trading him, but I'm not there internally. I don't know what, really what they can do to help him. Obviously, when Miller was traded this year, we expected Pettersson might take off. He did not. So is that really not part of the problem, or at least not a big enough piece of it that's making a big enough difference? That's the hard part. So a big decision has to come on Pettersson. Obviously, like I said, in free agency, can Brock Besser and Pius Suter find themselves leaving? I think there's a really good chance based on negotiations. It sure doesn't sound like they want to pay either their asking price. The fact that they're both top 5 scorers concerns me that, if you have Pettersson that you may have brought back, and if you bring him back, that means you're stuck with him for a long time on a no-move clause, or if you do trade him down the road, you're going to have to get his permission. You're going to get fleeced. One of the two. And then on top of that, if he doesn't bounce back, you get Besser and Suter. Like I said, top 5 scorers might be going out the door. So there's a pretty good chance that they don't come back. Connor Garland, another player. I've seen an interview with him on the with Rick Dollywall. Rick asked him point blank, do you want to sign an extension with the Canucks this offseason because you're eligible? And he didn't give any confidence that he wanted to whatsoever. He didn't say, like, absolutely, I love Vancouver, I want to say. Didn't say any of those things. Didn't say absolutely not either. He's not going to do that. He said basically, yeah, I'll leave those conversations up to my agent, But it just didn't give any confidence that he wants to stay. And after everything the team has been through, and you get Garland, to me, is a big Rick Tocchet guy. He's had Rick Tocchet for a big chunk of his NHL career from his time in Arizona, and then they kind of followed suit to Vancouver. So, I don't know, between Tocchet leaving and some of the other changes we've seen, I'm not so sure Garland wants to stick around. If you're kind of in a situation where you know he's not going to re-sign with a year left, do you not try to trade him? Right? So if you try to trade Garland because he's not going to stay, and Besser and Suter go out the door, now you're down 3 of your top 5 scorers, and that still, the list still doesn't include Elias Pettersson. The health of Thatcher Demko, like I said, a big, big question. You have to know where things are at that way. If you can get your all-star goalie bouncing back in tandem with Lankinen, you're going to be in real good shape between the pipes. So at least that's something that you might be able to bank on, but obviously you need to know where things are at that way. Obviously, a top 6 centerman is something that they need to target with whatever they do. It's not going to be easy to do. And then if they lose some of these guys, they need at least 1, maybe 2 scoring wingers. They have some young talent like Lekaramaki who can maybe, if he's still here, not use as a trade piece to jump into more of a full-time role next year. That's difficult to say. But those are the areas. I think they're pretty comfortable with their D, and I think for the most part they're comfortable with their goaltending. Thankfully, Lankinen is able to kind of hold down the fort, and Demko is as much as a bit of a wild card here. At least they can take their chances that they already signed Lankinen with starter money, so they don't really need to worry about that right now. The D-course is really just a forward group. So, they have a draft pick coming up in the NHL Draft at number 15. Are they going to use that, or are they going to trade it? Based on what I've heard, I think they're open to trading it if they can get some immediate help with the players that their type of guys are looking for. It could probably, for a top 6 scoring winger or a top 6 centerman, I can see that being a possibility that they might be able to make that happen. So, I've heard some about maybe targeting Patrick Laine if Montreal decides they want to move him after 1 year. Again, that's a kind of complicated too, but I know there has been some rumblings whether or not Laine stays in Montreal. So we'll see. But the big question, the biggest of all those, the future of Quinn Hughes. And unfortunately, this question is probably not going to be fully addressed this offseason. But we know he's got this year and one more year left. And, you know, Jim Rutherford spilled the beans, which was not really a kept secret anyway, that Quinn has desires to want to play with his brothers. And he may not re-sign. He said, you know, this might not be about money. They want to make sure they manage their cap so that they have a big amount to offer him as a re-signing option in a couple of years' time. But like he said, Rutherford goes on record and says it's not necessarily going to be all about money for him. We all know he wants to play with his brothers. So are they at risk of losing him? You know, the drama didn't help matters, made it stressful on Quinn. He loved Rick Tocchet. He's gone. You know, like, there's a lot of question marks, and then they're going to spend the next year or year and a half probably to a point where they're going to be just trying to make him happy to stay. And it's just hard to say how this is going to work out. But if they lose Quinn Hughes, this team is going to be such a disappointment. Like, it's going to be one of the biggest, losses that any team could suffer here in the next few years. So we'll have to take a look and see where things go. But clearly the Canucks are going to be an interesting team between the draft, what they do to make Hughes happy, how they address the forward group with all these questions. Will they trade Pettersson? Is Besser and Suter gone? Who do they target as replacements? A lot of things there to consider. Going to be lots of answers to come that we don't have just yet. So let me know what your thoughts and expectations are for the Vancouver Canucks this offseason. Down in the comments, we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.